Two NYPD policemen fell in the line of duty, extending a serious line of death after the new DA took office. The funeral today caught the heart of the entire nation.
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg stood the heat for his soft-on-crime policy, but doubled down on it.
District attorney in both San Francisco and Los Angeles faced a similar public outcry and also a recall.
So why soft on crime? How did we get here? What is the right policy? Still remember broken window and American Mayor Giuliani?
More serious than what we already know, Victor Hanson today will tell us about the potential American system breakdown and the fundamental reason behind it. Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
I'm Kathy Zhang.
Today really is a sad drama caught the heart of the entire nation. It hasn't been since 1945, the end of Second World War, were there so many uniformed people on the street of New York. The funeral of Jason Rivera, the 22-year-old new NYPD policeman who lost his life in the line of fire, had his funeral today.
Right. So fallen police officer of New York City, Jason Rivera, was laid to rest this morning. Hundreds of law enforcement have converged along with the family, friends, and the general public to pay their final respects. Let's see some of the scene of the funeral. The funeral mass was at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. So let's just see some of the scene over there. Yeah, it's really a solemn, in the scene.
Literally thousands of NYPD policemen and the sheriff stood on the street today, and.
Yeah, let's just, what happened, right? So last Friday, on January 11th, Rivera and his partner, police officer Wilbur Mora, responded to a domestic violence call in Harlem. A mother called for help because he said her adult son was arguing with her and threatening her. So both officers responded along with another officer without uniform. But Rivera and Mora were fatally shot. So at today's funeral, the widow of Officer Rivera delivered a very moving eulogy.
I would say good morning to you all, but in fact, it's the worst morning ever. I can't believe I'm standing in front of thousands of people in the cathedral we plan to visit later this year. All of this seems so unreal, like I'm having one of those nightmares that you never thought you'd had.
So this is Dominica Luzarriga. She recalled the day that she was with her husband. They only married for a few months.
3 months.
Yeah, they got married last October.
And Jason was a really young NYPD policeman. He loved the force, and he only joined force in his 20th. So now he's only 22-year-old, only after a little more than 1 year and a half, and he fell in the line of fire. In the line of the duty.
And Dominic recalled that what happened that morning. They went to have breakfast together as their routine. But the worst thing, she said that the worst thing it happened was they got into an argument, and because she wasn't happy that Jason still had his work phone with him while they are together. So they got into kind of argument, and usually Jason will send her home before going to work. But Dominique just said, I don't want to argue anymore, so she called on Uber. And the one sentence, like a one word, the last word, Jason told him is like, "Are you sure?" And he said, "This could be my last ride for you." So I think, at that time the couple was, having some heat, right, together. It's normal, but Dominic said that was, and she said no. And she said that's the worst decision, and the thing she said to Jason. And in the afternoon, then Dominic, started to notice from the app, saying that 2 officers in Harlem were shot. And then she got worried, she called, and, then she described how she got the news and described the heart-wrenching moment she found out that Jason had been killed.
I called, and then called again, and then called one more time. And this time, I felt something wasn't right. I messaged Pioka David and Joe because I knew they were your friends from the 3-2. And I get no response. Then I get a call asking if I'm Jason's wife. And then I had to rush to the hospital. Walking out those steps, seeing everybody staring at me was the scariest moment I've experienced. Nobody was telling me anything. Thousands of people were surrounding me, and yet I felt alone. I couldn't believe you laughed at me.
So, at the end of the eulogy, actually, Dominic criticized Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, and she received a long-standing ovation from people who attend the funeral.
And although you won't be here anymore, I want you to live through me. The system continues to fail us. We are not safe anymore. Not even the members of the service. I know you were tired of these laws, especially the ones from the new DA. I hope he's watching you speak through me right now.
Eventually, most people, if not all, stand up. And the DA was sitting there.
Was among them?
Yeah, was among them.
I'm sure all of our blue family is tired too. But I promise, we promise, that your death won't be in vain. I love you to the end of time. We'll take the watch from here.
Well, the ending piece indeed caught the attention, media's attention, and how the lady, the wife, the widow, was targeting the DA, Alvin Bragg. His name is Alvin Bragg. He stepped into office in January 1st. Okay, let's talk about why he, why she did that, and what did Alvin Bragg do. But before we even got there, let's just revisit a new law that was passed, was in place in the January 1st of 2020. Okay, so basically, at that time, New York passed a law which would give a much bigger leeway to the people in jail. Okay, so the law actually was meant to reduce the number of people jailed while awaiting for trial, simply because they could not afford to pay bail. That's bail. Yeah, that's the original purpose. And the proponent said the law would have reduced the jail population by at least 40% by eliminating cash bail for as much as 90% of the arrest. Okay, so basically for most misdemeanors and the nonviolent felonies, judges are required to release people with the least restrictive conditions, and cash bail is prohibited. For the remaining cases, judges maintain the option of setting cash bail. Basically, judges have their own free room to decide on how much bail they're going to set. And then it also allowed cash bail for almost all violent felonies and certain non-violent felonies, such as sex offenses and witness tampering. Okay, so after the law was passed and then Governor Coomer signed it, and it just went to the effect in the January 1st of 2020, and then right away we see the crime rate in the New York City increase. So because of that, not just in New York City, in New York State, right away they came back and revisit the law and revise it in 3 months. So in April it has a revision, but revision really just only have a little bit change, which is basically when they release people without a bail, they have to consider the person's history. If it has a criminal history, they may need to pay some cash to get the bail. But generally speaking, it's still a much more lenient way to target misdemeanor and including felony. All right. So what happened to this DA? This DA was voted in and last year and stepping office in January 1st. On day one, he issued one staff memo, directed prosecutors to drop some misdemeanor cases, not seek bail or prison time for most defendants, and to downgrade certain felonies to misdemeanors. All right, so after this, he faced this criticism. In just less than 1 month, 5 policemen were shot. And then he doubled down on his controversial progressive policies yesterday, and he defiantly declared that the U.S. Constitution gives him the right to not prosecute certain crimes. Okay, and the Bragg claimed that prosecutorial discretion is a bedrock principle embedded in our Constitution. I don't know about you. Constitution is not very long, and I read the Constitution, entire Constitution. I don't know where is his base, but that was his claim. And he said now there's this proliferation of the criminal laws, and no prosecutors is enforcing every single law all the time. So he said we are exercising prosecutorial discretion. And he said, what I and some others have done is we said it out loud in the spirit of transparency. All right. So after he issued a memo and he moved into office, just for 20 days, at least 9 Manhattan prosecutors quit, and including one who a law enforcement sources said quit without a job. It just basically walk out. And Alvin Bragg said, I think it's a really modest number that has departed. And I addressed the office earlier today. I think the morale is good. That's his response. All right. So in the meantime, Kathy will bring you the story in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, right? So let's just revisit one issue. This is a Manhattan DA, right?
Right. Yeah, and so actually before bring you the story in the DAs of San Francisco and Los Angeles, I wanted to share with you because we were talking about the fallen officers. So just very recently, FBI it has a division to have a statistics of the intentional killing of law enforcement officers, and the preliminary data shows that this type of intentional killing of law enforcement officers reached 20-year high last year. So that's according to FBI's law enforcement officers killed and assaulted. So let's show a C1. 2021 is the highest number of law enforcement officers who were intentionally killed in the line of duty. It marks the highest total recorded by the agency since 1995, excluding the 9/11 attack. And last year, in 2021, 346 police officers were shot. That's unprecedented, including 73 officers died in felonious killing in the line of duty, which is a 59% increase from 2020's total of 46. That's breaking the previous high of 72 felonious killing in 2011. So FBI classified a death as a felonious killing when an officer is fatally injured as a direct result of a willful and intentional act by an offender. Then separately, 56 officers were killed accidentally while in the line of duty last year, which is also up from 46 in 2020. So, from 2020 to 2021, we can see really a hike in such kind of cases. Mm-hmm. So how about this year, right? Yeah. We just entered 2020, but actually, unfortunately, we see an explosion of attack on the police officers nationwide. Today is the 28th of the first month of 2020. Already at least
2022.
2022. So at least 25 police officers shot in January so far, which is a 38% increase from last year. That including 9 police officers shot in major cities in the past 7 days. And in the last 48 hours, 6 officers shot in 3 major cities, including 3 of them in Houston, 2 in St. Louis, and 1 in Milwaukee. It's just found out that the cop was killed in Houston. One of them, he is actually an illegal alien, and who entered the United States illegally and has been
the killer. The killer.
Yeah, the killer, mm-hmm. And has been on the run for past 20 years. So that's the situation, and we also know that there are videos showing the illegals were flown to New York City and across America by the federal agents. So that's it's another topic, but it's related. So really, what is the root cause? That's what we will bring you the analysis, the comments from Hoover Institute senior fellow, Professor Victor Hanson, just in a little bit. I interviewed him yesterday. He talked about something. He's very worried, very shocking. We hope it's not the case, but we will hear from him. Now, let's talk about the DAs, district attorneys. In Los Angeles County yesterday, the county just approved a petition to recall District Attorney George Gascon. He is now officially facing a second recall effort. So the first recall was, they fell short, but they did got a good number of petition signatures and raise a big amount of fund. So why Los Angeles residents wants to recall George Gascon? The recall campaign said in a press release issued after the county registrar's approval, saying that we are sick and tired of living in the pro-criminal paradise Gascon created. They said that it's actually a bipartisan recall effort supported by more than 30 cities in Los Angeles County. So the voters just had no confidence against the district attorney. Most recently, Beverly Hills officially endorsed the recall campaign on January 4th. The organizers have until July 6th to gather and submit about 570,000 signatures to get the measure on this November ballot. And according to the recall campaign organizer, Gascon's had this policies criminal-friendly, that's what they called, including disregard for the existing laws and the support for weakened sentencing for violent crimes. So the critics said that George Gascon issued several policies that have emboldened gangs and the criminals in Los Angeles. Things that we can remember, like the flash and the grab retail robberies, right? Mm-hmm. And the follow home robberies really shocked the Los Angeles residents. Actually, it's not alone. We reported to you about San Francisco. That's the next one, right? But those notable victims, including a Los Angeles Police Department officer killed while off duty on January 10th during a shootout with robbery suspects. And then 2 women killed by a suspect homeless people. And, very famous music icon, Clarence Avant's wife, right, was actually shot to death while he is in she was in her Beverly Hill home. And other policies like the zero bail, and also Gascon in 2020 issued a special directive directing his prosecutors to seek dismissal of all 3 strikes charges, including gun, gang, and other sentencing enhancement, saying that the majority of those incarcerated belonged to long disadvantaged groups. And most recently, the train robbery, if you remember, right? As high as 90 containers were robbed per day. The Union Pacific agents caught, they said, dozens, almost 100 suspects, but the district office under the direction of Gascon just basically let them go, or just let them go on a very low bails. I had a statement from the Union Pacific spokesperson, and he said that they really feel that it is because of a DA's policy that made this situation. So the recall group said in the petition that George Gascon's new policies treat career and repeat violent offenders as if they had never committed a crime, ignoring public safety laws approved by the people. So that's why he's facing another effort to recall. In San Francisco, Chesa Boudin, he's already facing the recall election in this summer, in this June. And Chesa Boudin, again, is very soft on crime. Personally, I was told by the police officers, who was in charge of our area, they said he just let the criminals go. Okay. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, and this Chesa Boudin, actually, I interviewed him when he was running for office about 4 years ago. And at that time, I still remember, he said, I want to focus my resource on the major crime. Okay, on the small ones, will not spend too much effort on that because it's not important, it's not crucial, it's not as efficient. It's plausible, okay? As you hear him talking about that, you thought, well, it seems like a strategy. Could it work? Anyway, let me tell you a story. Back in the early 1990s, if you recall, if you are old enough, you were around back then, you remember that New York City was really a crime city. Okay, the situation was not good at all. I just came to the U.S. I went through the Grand Central Station and to Connecticut. I have a bus transit there, and my experience at that night was really, really bad. That was my first impression of America, a dark city in the New York City. However, in the 90s and in the early 2000s, New York City improved and its crime rate was greatly reduced. And if you go to Times Square, since then until today, it's not a crime place. It's not a so-called a red light place. Pornography and flourish around. No, Times Square today, you see the commercial, you see the art, you see the theaters. That's what you see. It's a clean city. Okay. So what happened? What happened? In 1993, Rudy Giuliani ran for mayor and he got elected. In 1997, he got re-elected again. And his slogan at that time is tough on crimes. So how did he do it? Okay, he actually he hired an outsider, the police commissioner from Boston, and his name is William Brenton. And William Brunton coming in and apply a theory which is called the broken window theory. And for many of you, you probably know. If you know, can you type it up there? I really want to do a little survey here to see among our audience how many people you know this theory, okay? But I think it's really worth mentioning. And the theory was, proposed or invented by two scholars. And the first scholar's name is James Wilson. He's a professor at UCLA and Harvard University at that time. This is in 1982, the Reagan time. Okay, and then the other scholar is George Kelling, and he's a professor at Rogers University in Newark, and he's also a scholar at Harvard University. He's also a probation officer, so dealing with the criminals most of his life. So they proposed this broken window theory. So what does that do? Okay, it's basically said that the visible signs of crime, antisocial behavior, and the civil disorder create an urban environment that encourages further serious crime. So basically, in short, okay, if you allow minor crime to exist, bigger crime follow. So how do you fix a city? How do you fix the crime of a city? You focus on the broken window. Let's take a look at the broken window. You see that the meaning. You know, when you see a building like this and a broken window like that, you would see, well, it's fine to commit some crime. It seems that this is a crime environment. But if you fix every broken window, okay, focus on the minor crime, prosecute them, remove them, eliminate them, the bigger crime was gone. You know, they don't follow. Okay, true or not? Through Rudy Giuliani's tenure, the crime rate in New York City really dropped very, very sharply. Okay, the police commissioner, William Brunton, and the mayor Giuliani was so successful that the Los Angeles came to New York and, and just hired William Brunton away. And then after the Rodney King incident and the riot in Los Angeles and so on and so forth, Los Angeles was a mess. This is in early 2000. And William Brunton was hired by the Los Angeles police department, become the commissioner there. So he moved to Los Angeles and fixed that city over there. Then in 2014, he came back to the New York City on invitation, of course, and served as the commissioner of the new NYPD again for 2 years until 2016. Okay, so this is the history and theory of broken window theory. It's completely contrary to what this DA, this Alvin Bragg of the Manhattan DA, and also this Chelsea Bolton and the Los Angeles DA, what's his name? So these three,
George Gascon.
And they said the reason why they think we should be soft on crime, very simple. They said because they are disadvantaged people. They are poor, so we should let them go. All right, be lenient. That's basically it. So this is as you can see, right? This is completely contrary to the broken window theory, which proved to work. So in the name of in the name of being lenient, being compassionate, we allow crime to flourish. And me, Wei Fang, okay, as a person who come from China, from a communist country, this is really what I want to share with you. The so-called leniency, the kindness, the compassion is a poison, okay? They focus on some very small problem of the system and go in and just push that to the extreme. And the purpose is destroy the current order, okay? They try to amplify some compassion to outer portion, to the point of disrupt and destroy the current order. That's the purpose. That's how communists and socialists work, okay? They just grab something and really just blow that out of portion.
Yeah, but I think people would ask, where's the compassion for the victims, right? They have the compassion for the criminals, but where's the compassion? The compassion should be on the victims, whether that's a regular, citizen or law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
They are the victims. They deserve our compassion.
Yeah, and just choosing to focus on the criminals and not on the victims. This is something that if we are well informed enough, we can think about that. We become aware of that. However, the intentional blindsided on just one issue on the criminals. What I want to share with you, whether if you don't believe it, just let me just type it in the comment. I want to learn. I want to learn how you feel about that. That was intentional. The purpose is grind down America. This is how far it goes. All right, so Victor Hanson and Kathy interviewed him, and he bring us some more serious issue, and we want to share with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as many of you know, Victor Hanson, professor, he's a classist and a historian at the Stanford Hoover Institution, and the author of 20-some books. So I talked to him yesterday. And so he recently wrote an article, actually just distributed in dozens of publications. He was questioning, things happening right now, including the law enforcement, what happened to the two officers in New York, to their families, and also the spike of crimes that we described, as well as the situation at the border, the inflations, and CRT, critical race theory, all those things. And he was very worried. And what he was worried is that if America is heading for a systems collapse. So really, what is a systems collapse? So I asked him this question and also asked him what's the fundamental reason behind it.
Well, in history, there are a number of examples of successful societies that start to unwind, and it's not because of climate change or foreign invasion or anything like that. It's not inevitable. So Rome in the West, let's say, started to unravel between 430 and 480 AD. But Roman society in the East, at Constantinople, would go on for 1,000 years. So obviously something was different. And the characteristics are pretty easy to identify. Suddenly it's not safe to be out. If you want to take a trip, you have to calibrate what time of day you go or whether you'll be assaulted or not. If you want to buy food or necessities or find shelter, the shelves will be empty. Or if you are of a particular tribe within your group, you might have to band together by superficial appearance because you're afraid another tribe will attack you, and tribalism has replaced the central authority of the government. Or you have no confidence in the government because it's chaotic, or it won't enforce laws, or it enforces laws asymmetrically. But all of that filters down to your existentials of living, and so food and shelter and transportation become very hard, and they unwind. And why does this happen? It's usually because either the currency has lost its value due to inflation or deficits or borrowing, or there is a breakdown in the application or the enforcement of law, or criminals are not incarcerated, or more importantly, people don't believe anymore in the authority or the legitimacy of government, and they start to freelance on their own. And all of those things happen. They happen in the Mycenaean world. They happen during the Greek city-state. They happened in particular periods in the European Dark Ages, so they're not uncommon. And they can be quite abrupt. They can happen, over a period of years rather than decades or centuries. It's not that there's not long-term catalysts for it, but and I tried in that article to suggest that when you go to the store today, you may not find what you want. And you'll see for the first time in my life, large areas of shelving that's empty. Or when you want to buy fuel, suddenly you have to decide whether you want to drive or you want to buy something, or because of the inflation. Out here in California, $5 a gallon. Or you might want to buy a steak that was affordable and now it may cost $45. You can't buy it. Or if you're going to Los Angeles or San Francisco and you have a nice car and a used car, you might decide that you're not going to drive your newer car because you could be carjacked or it could be stolen or the catalytic converter could be cut out. Or when you go to San Francisco, you might not want to walk into the Tenderloin at night or even down in Market Street during the day. Or your ethnic group may be targeted by another ethnic group, so you never really identified by that group, but you're forced to now because you don't have confidence in the state to keep you safe. Or your schools that were places of safety and unity now have either been shut down or they don't exist, or they exist in something that's a form that's unrecognizable. So I'm pretty worried about it because it seems to me that this is a matter not just of left or right or Democratic or Republican, but the stuff of life is now in danger.
Yeah, so I think what you described from the history, actually people can really relate to what's happening right now. So just from the history, what do you think we can learn? What's the fundamental reason for that to be happen? What went wrong?
Well, in a lot of these cases, there are decisions. The people within a society or a state or a nation are no longer accept the premises of that state or that culture. And every city, state, every nation has to believe that it's unique, it's better than the alternative, and it has a history, origins, lifespan that's worth defending, whether materially or abstractly. But here in the United States, we're in an Orwellian situation where we have 2 million people from the poorest parts of the world who are dying to get in here, but a large number of our elite are telling them and telling us in general that this is a bad country at its origins. It got worse during its development, and it's hopeless now unless we fill in the blanks. We have to use race to determine appointments. We have to get rid of the Electoral College. We've got to junk the filibuster. We've got to have a national voting law contrary to the spirit of the Constitution. We've got to let in 2 states. We've got to put in 15 justices, all because this country is so toxic, but then they cannot explain at the same time, if it's so toxic, why do they and millions others want to live here? And so there's no confidence in the institutions anymore. Nobody has respect. And then the other thing is that relativism rather than absolutism starts to permeate a society. And by that I mean you can always argue for something wrong with something. So if you have a homeless person and he's shooting drugs or he's defecating on the street or he's hitting somebody with a hammer, you can say, well, I don't know about his upbringing, or he made a bad life choice, or I wouldn't want to be. And then what you always do is you punish the innocent victim, or you expect the citizen to obey laws that you will not enforce in terms of the criminal. So the person who is a citizen and feels that he or she has a responsibility to follow the laws is the last on the totem pole of consideration by the state. So if you want to today get on an airplane, you're going to have to show a license or a passport, domestic flight. If you're from south of the border and you're being transported or you're taking a flight, you can show an arrest record because you have no passport or driver's license, but yet you're going to, even though you're residing here illegally and you've been arrested, that arrest record will allow you to have identification. And so, or if you or I are walking in Oakland or San Francisco and somebody hits us in the face, it's going to destroy our day, our health, our year. But the person who hit it might not be subject to any punishment at all. He can say that he was provoked, or he had a bad childhood, or he was a victim of a particular. So there's this cynicism that develops that the law-abiding citizen is targeted, who plays by the rules and pays the taxes, so that the non-law-abiding citizen will not be punished for transgressions. And then once you start doing that, then the law-abiding citizen says, you know what, I can't follow the law because I'll die if I do. So I'm going to take measures into my own hand. And that's dangerous too. He says, I'm going to live with my tribe. I'm going to make a clan. I'm going to buy my own weapons. I'm going to buy my own sources of food or fuel. And that's what's starting to happen as well.
Yeah, so basically, Professor Hanson just said, the root cause, he believes the wokeism the woke ideology. He said that it's cruel and it's antithetical to the founding of the United States. He just feels it's really, really dangerous. So I had talk to him more about it, but I will, share with his entire interview with you pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And,
yeah.
I saw a lot of comments. One thing I saw both on the YouTube and the Safe Chat, our friends are, talking about. One matter is George Soros backing some of those DAs. I actually did some research. I had a kind of in-depth interview in that topic. So we'll share with you maybe next week. So that is one of the issues that people are concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I hate CCP. He said, what do communism in United States want? Destroy local police, so they installed federal CCP police?
They want power, okay? They want power, and the current framework of America prevent them from obtaining the power. So they have to destroy the current framework, create a chaos, create a crisis. When people in the crisis, they ask for whatever help they can grab. At that time, they make a bold promise. They got elected. Then they start to change, put in their fundamental change. This is how I read the situation.
That's how like Cuba and China happened. How the communists grabbed the power, because they actually, they are minority at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the chaos, they made a promise. We're gonna change the situation. We're gonna give you peace and the things like that. Just then, people just gave them the power.
Yeah. There are indeed a difference between USA and Venezuela. From that, with the Soviet Union and China and the People's Republic of China, for the latter, the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China, they just have rebellion. They have their rebellion. They took the arms and toppled the legitimate government. In the U.S. and Venezuela, no, they use the vote to do that. But it's very hard if America is functioning well. Those people, communists, cannot be voted into office unless they create a mess. And to accomplish that, they have to destroy our business, destroy our school, destroy our churches, and destroy our media. So this is what they've been doing. Okay, the ultimate goal is to create chaos and crisis. Then they can get into power through legitimate, election. So. Yeah, besides all the crisis, the systematic failure that Professor Hanson was warning, I just want to quote this, okay, as the ending of today. So the two scholars, remember, the inventor of the broken window, and James Wilson said this. At that time, he was actually, when he was a young professor, he voted for all Democrat president or candidate, like John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, and Herbert Hoover. He even worked on the Hoover's campaign. Mm-hmm. But later, he became a leading conservative scholar. On the issue of a war on drugs, let me just quote his word. He said, many educated people in America discuss the drug problem in almost every way except the right way. They talk about the cost of drug use and the socio-economic factors that shape that use, and so on and so forth. They rarely speak plainly the following. Drug use is wrong because it is immoral, and it is immoral because it enslaves the mind and destroys the soul. Right? I think we're losing our campus. Okay, what is right, what is wrong? Shooting on people is wrong, and rob on people is wrong. Even you are poor, it's still wrong. When it's wrong, it shall be punished. This is the meaning of the value of our society. Okay, reward the good people and punish the bad deed. But we lost all those. In the name of so-called compassion, we really disrupt, and eventually destroy all our law and order and our value, our framework. So knowing that this is all intentionally done, I don't know whether you agree with me. So by enough people being aware of that, we can stop it. Because the whole idea is trick us into a situation where we just grab for life-saving whatever things, including that big mouth promising that it can save us from the crisis, those communist politicians down the road. Yeah, anyway, so it is indeed a very special era we're living in, a lot of tests in our life, and to our faith, and and to our thinking.
Yeah, and I saw out on Lim commented, important to voting people of good moral character and the love of country who will follow the laws of our Constitution. Well said. Actually, Victor Hanson, he emphasized on that in my interview with him. Mm-hmm. And Doug Watson said, we must remember good Americans vastly outnumber these criminals, and we, the people, will win with unity. Yeah, I think.
Well said.
Well said, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that will be all for today, and thank you for being with us. We are dealing with these solemn topics, but they're important, right? They're important. As we become clear in our mind, our action will be clear too.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Us.
And actually, this weekend is the Chinese New Year weekend, so we'll be busy doing all the Chinese program for our Chinese audience. But we also want to say Happy Chinese New Year to you.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy the Year of Tiger. Hope we'll have a better year than last year.
Yeah, and we'll work together to win back the true China, not the CCP China, the true China, the traditional China, the China with good value. And thank you for being with us. Let's do this together.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.